Hi everyone, welcome back, and we are looking at one-step equations, specifically addition equations. So we're going to learn how to write and solve addition equations. So before we start, let's just have a look at some important notation. So firstly, we're going to write and we're going to solve addition equations, and we're going to be using the subtraction property. Okay, firstly, what is an equation? An equation is actually a mathematical sentence that has numbers and variables, like for example, b plus 2 equals 9. Okay, now whenever you see the equal to sign, this indicates that it's an equation in any mathematical sentence if you get an equal to sign, right? And this, remember, the letters, they represent a missing number. They are called the variable. You can use any letter of the alphabet to represent something that you don't know. So this actually reads as what number plus 2 is equal to 9. Now logically or in your mind you can solve this because you know that 7 plus 2 equals to 9, right? So you can just say it's 9. But if the number, it's 7. But if the number gets very large, then you may need to use the subtraction property here. Now what the subtraction property means, whenever we have addition in the equation, so we're going to use the opposite operation. So here we're going to use the opposite operation. So if there was a plus, that means now we're going to be using the minus. So we're just going to minus these two, so that b is actually equal to 9 minus 2, which is 7. And if you test it, you know 7 plus 2 is equal to 9. Okay, so that's what they mean by subtraction property, and that's how we can write and solve addition equations. Alright, let's move on to the next page. Then on page 342, we're going to look at example 1, specifically here to write addition equations. So let's look at the example. It says together, that's an important word, that means your total. Ruben and Tariq downloaded 245.5 megabytes. So we know that together, that's the total, the total. And then they tell us that Ruben downloaded 132 megabytes. Write an addition equation that can be used to find out how many megabytes Tariq owns. So we want to find, we'll use the variable t. So t represents how many megabytes Tariq has downloaded, plus we know Ruben already downloaded 132 megabytes, and altogether we know the total is 245.5. Okay, so this 132 represents Ruben's downloads, and this one represents the total downloads, and this one represents Tariq's, okay, Tariq's downloads. So to solve for the t, or because these are big numbers, we cannot do it in our head, so we're going to have to use the subtraction property, because the opposite of a plus is to minus. So we're going to do that, 245.5 minus 132. Now 132 means a 0.0, so 5 minus 0 is 5, 5 minus 2 is 3, 4 minus 3 is 1, and 2 minus 1 is 1. So that's how we know that Tariq, this is how much Tariq has downloaded. Okay, so if you want to quickly recap, so Ruben and Tariq downloaded a total of 245.5 megabytes, but Ruben himself only downloaded 132 megabytes. So when we write the equation, we're going to say, okay, so Tariq and plus 132, which is Ruben's, in total gives us 245.5. Now here you can see they use the variable m. You can use any variable. We use the variable t. It means the same thing. Alright, so let's move on now to the next page. Now here this is a check example, so you can actually do this yourself. It's here you can say together again, so you know that is the total. When we are adding something, you can see the and. So Zachariah and Paz have a total of $756.80. If Zachariah has $489.50, then how much does Paz have? Okay, so that's what we need to find. So let Paz be represented by P, and we know Zachariah, he has 489.50, and in total altogether they have $756.80. So if you want to find how much Paz has, all you have to do is, again, this is an addition equation, so we're going to use the opposite operation, so we're going to subtract those two. Okay, and you know how to subtract, so you can do this one yourself. And if you go now to the next page, okay, let's just do that for you quickly. So 756.80, we're going to minus 489. Remember to line up the decimal points and the place values. 0, you can minus 0 is 0. 8 minus 5 is 3. 6 we cannot minus 9, so we got to borrow. 16 minus 9 is 7. 4 we cannot minus 8, so we're going to borrow again. 14 minus 8 is 6, and 6 minus 4 is 2. So that's the amount that Paz has. Right, then moving on to the next page here. Here you can see we are solving. Solve means to find the missing number, to find the solution. So here we've got 8 equals x plus 3, and we want to find this one. You know, you can do it in your mind because you want to know what number plus 3 is equal to 8, and you can do the subtraction property, or you know 5 plus 3 is 8, so you can just say, okay, so x must be equal to 5, or you could have just said 8 minus 3 is just 5. Okay, right, then moving on to the next question. This is also a check question on page 346. So again, we're going to solve this equation. We're going to find the x value. So we want to solve for the x here. So again, these are big numbers. It's not so easy. So we're going to use the subtraction property because there's a plus in here. So we're going to work out that x will equal to 570 minus the 33, and 0 we cannot minus 3, so we're going to borrow. 10 minus 3 is 7, and 6 minus 3 is 3, and 5 minus nothing is 5. Okay, so we know that this is the x value. And if you wanted to check this, to check whether this is the correct answer, you can now add these up and see, do they equal to 570? Okay, so you can just say 537 plus 33. 7 plus 3 is 10. 3 plus 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7, and 5 plus nothing is 5. So you are getting back that 570. Alright, let's moving on to the next example. This example here is on page 346, but it involves fraction work here. Okay, so let's see. I'll just write that out again. So 3 3/4 plus m equals 7.5. Okay, so again, to solve for the m, we cannot do this in our mind, so we're going to subtract the two. Okay, so we're going to say, okay, so m will equal to, we'll start with the bigger one, which is 7.5 minus 3 3/4. Okay, now remember, we cannot subtract fractions or add fractions if the denominator is not the same. So we have to make the denominator the same. So I'm going to change, if this is 4, let's also, we know 2 can become 4. So by multiplying it by 2, multiplying it by 2. So this actually becomes 7 2/4 minus 3 3/4. Okay, so now we can now subtract these, but 2/4 is too small, so we know we cannot subtract 3/4 from 2/4 because you have to start from the top. So 2/4 cannot minus 3/4. It's 2 cannot minus 3. It's too small. So what we're going to do is, from the whole numbers, what you can do is you can also, there's more than one way you can do that, right? So one method is you can borrow 1 from here, so this will become 6. And so when we borrow 1 in the form of a fraction is actually 4/4. So we're adding 4/4 to the 2/4. Okay, and 4/4 and 2/4 actually gives us 6/4. So that becomes 6 and 6/4. Now if we subtract 6/4 minus 3/4, it will be 3/4. And then from the whole numbers, 6 minus 3 is 3. So my answer is 3 and 3/4. Okay, another way you could have done it is if you wanted to say 7.5 minus 3 and 3/4, then all we're going to do is just change these mixed numbers. Remember to multiply and add. So 7 times 2 is 14 plus 1 is 15/2. And again here 3 times 4 is 12 plus 3 is 15. So we're going to get 15/4. Okay, again now we're going to change this to be, we cannot subtract until the denominators are the same. So we're going to change this 2 to become a 4, so we're going to multiply it by 2. So this will become 30/4 because 15 times 2 is 30, and this fraction stays the same. Right, now 30 minus 15 is just 15, so you're going to get 15/4. And because the numerator is bigger than the denominator, we know it's going to change into a mixed number. So how many groups of 4 do we have in 15? We know 4 times 3 is 12, and 4 times 4 is 16. So we know we can only make 3 whole groups because 16 is too much. We only have 15. So we know 4 times 3 is 12. So we got a remainder of 3 because 15 minus 12 is 3. So you're going to get the same answer here. Okay, and that's how you would deal with a fraction. Okay, then we go next to the next page, and here as well the example is very similar, so you can do this yourself as well, or you could just you can do this together. So we're solving for the k, and so we're going to subtract the 2. So k will equal to 2 and 1/4 minus 5/8. Okay, so again you can change this into a mixed number, and what do we get? So we get multiply there. 4 times 2 is 8 plus 1 is 9/4, and then this stays 5/8. Right, now again we cannot change this, subtract this, because we have to change it into having the same denominator of 8. So to make the denominator 8, we're going to have to multiply by 2. So we're going to get 18/8 minus 5/8, and that's going to give us 18 minus 5 is 13/8. Now how many groups of 8 can we make with 13? We know 8 times 1 is 8, and 8 times 2 is 16. So we're going to go with the one group only, and we used 8, so 13 minus 8 is 5, so the remainder is 5/8. Okay, and that's the answer you should be getting. Right, then moving on to the next page, and this is your homework now, so you can complete all the examples on this page. Okay, this is on page 349, so please complete all of them, and you can send me your pictures on Telegram or on WhatsApp. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video.